Challenges around industrialization of the African continent are expected to come to the fore at the upcoming summit of heads of state in Niamey, as the African Union wants member states to renew commitments in this sector. Speaking from the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, organizers said the summit will deliberate changes needed to drive the much-needed industrialization.
We have been instructed by the General Assembly, by the heads of state of the African Union, to organize a summit on industrialization during the week of industrialization. It's still time for this summit to take place because industrialization is a choice taken by all states, all nations, all continents that have developed and industrialized. So there is still time for Africa to industrialize, and it's important to have this summit in Niamey.
The agreement that paved the way for Niger to host the summit was signed Wednesday in Addis Ababa between the ambassador, permanent representatives of the Republic of Niger to the African Union, and the Deputy Director of the Cabinet of the President of the Commission of the Organization Pan-African.
Aujourd'hui, nous venons de compléter cet accord avec la signature du deuxième important.
Today we've just signed the second agreement on the organization of the summit, this time on SFTA. This will allow Niamey to host the two summits instead of one. It is therefore a feeling of pride, but above all, exaltation and the expectation of welcoming all the member states to this summit.
The choice of Niamey to host the commemorative activities of the Week of Industrialization is not trivial. It has a strong symbolic charge.
Vous savez que le Niger est l'un des pays les moins industrialisés du continent.
You know that Niger is one of the least developed countries on the continent, and there is no reason for it to be so. There are countries in the sub-region which have the same constraint as us, but which have developed their industries more than us. So we are going to use this week to make the diagnosis. What are the strengths that we currently have?
Le diagnostic. Quels sont les points forts que nous avons actuellement,
but we do not highlight, and what are the weaknesses of our system overall? That will allow us to be able to boost the field of industry.
Booster le domaine de l'industrie. Il est possible que d'ici le sommet que nous vous présentions,
it is possible that between now and the summit, we will present to you the model of the new industrial zone, which will be established in Niamey.
Dans le cadre du programme de la Renaissance Acte 3, le président de la République, son Excellence
As part of the program, the President of the Republic, Mohamed Bazoum, has also made a commitment to create an industrial zone in each region. And we think by the end of this year, let's say by the beginning of next year, we're going to have a plan for each zone, each region of Niger.
Pour chaque zone, pour chaque région, j'allais dire. Alors, oui, il y a beaucoup d'attentes par rapport à
Yes, there are a lot of expectation in relation to the industrialization of our country. In particular, people are going to wonder why Niger, which is one of the least industrialized countries, is going to host such a high-level summit. The answer is that we want to acquire, benefit from the experiences of each other, because we intend to welcome no less than 2,000 people during this week. And we intend to enrich ourselves, enrich the ministries with this debate, and see what solution we are going to take to enable us to take off.
Renew commitments to inclusive and sustainable industrialization and economic diversification. This is the primary challenge of these meetings, which bring to the fore the need for African states to adapt to industrial processes that bring rationalization and increased productivity.
Dans le temps, nous avons eu plusieurs fois
For a long time, we had several actions, strategies, policies that were proposed for the industrial development of the continent. The latest is the strategy for the development of accelerated industrialization in Africa, which was adopted by heads of state in 2008.
Que cet engagement soit renouvelé, que tous les États membres.
It's now appropriate that this commitment be renewed so that all member states take this commitment for economic development, for the industrial development of their countries, because economic development, industrial development is a sovereign and national act. It's at the level of nations that this is happening.
Que ça se passe, c'est au niveau des pays que ça se passe. Le développement industriel, ça ne se passera pas.
Industrial development will not happen at the level of the African Union. All states must be committed to taking the necessary action for industrial development and therefore the economic development of their country.
Les grands décideurs, à savoir les chefs d'État, ils comptent sur nous tous.
The major decision makers, namely the heads of states, are counting on all of us so that the industrialization of Africa is no longer an empty word, so that we stop feeling remorse, complaining that it is X or Y's fault, that we take our destiny into our own hands. This is what they expect of us, that we enrich the debates to enable them to make adequate decisions and allow us to enter the industrialization of Africa.
Comme nous le savons, aucun pays, aucun continent ne peut se développer. Il ne peut pas y avoir de développement économique.
As you know, no country, no continent can develop without industrialization. We are lucky we had the AFCFTA, which was set up by the heads of state, but we have to be able to give content to the AFCFTA. This African Continental Free Trade Area content is industrialization. It is the transformation of our raw materials to allow this exchange between African countries and even export to other countries.
Sur d'autres continents. Il est grand temps, et c'est maintenant qu'il faut saisir cette opportunité. Nous sommes un des continents, sinon le continent le plus riche en matières premières.
It is a high time, and now is the time to seize this opportunity. We are one of the richest continents, if not the richest in raw material of all kinds, whether it is mineral material, agricultural material. It is a high time that we set up this common force to move on to the industrialization stage. And the goal is that we can work together because we enrich each other and we create synergy between us, and that's what our leaders expect from us. That there is synergy between all the countries of Africa and that we work hand in hand for the development of our continent.
D'Afrique, pour que nous ne nous fassions pas toujours la concurrence, mais que nous travaillions la main dans la main pour le développement de notre continent.
On the ground in Niamey, a delegation of nearly 30 people from the African Union has just carried out an assessment mission of the preparations for the extraordinary summit of heads of state.
Cette mission d'évaluation a passé à tous les aspects techniques que vous pouvez imaginer dans le cadre préparatif du sommet. Cela a des conditions.
This assessment mission also reviewed all the technical aspects of the preparations for the summit, from the accommodation conditions, the logistical system, validating the working documents, everything that is a parallel event. Through the protocol, all these were reviewed with the team of the African Union and the team of the Niger on the spot in a work atmosphere as if we are the same team. Niamey is ready to welcome the African Union.
We came back satisfied, Syrian. The meeting went well. It was just a remake of the meeting we had in in March this year, where we had an evaluation mission and where an agreement for the organization was signed. We had to return to Niamey to discuss this agreement because the dates for the organization of the summit had been somewhat modified.
Cet accord, parce que les dates de l'organisation
The
du
meetings of
sommet
experts
avaient
and the meetings of ministers of industries and economy that were to take
et
place
la
at the
réunion
very
des ministres
beginning of
chargés
the
de
week of
l'industrie et de
industrialization
l'économie, qui devait avoir
have now
lieu
been moved to
au
the
tout début
beginning
de la
of the
semaine de
first week of
l'industrialisation,
November
ont maintenant
3rd
été
and 4th for
portés
experts and
au début
7th
de
for ministers.
la première semaine du mois de novembre, le 3 et le 4 pour les experts et le 7 pour les ministres. Donc,
So we
nous
returned
sommes
to
retournés à
Niamey to
Niamey
discuss
pour
with the authorities
rediscuter
on the
avec
organization
les autorités
of this
là-bas
second part
sur
of the meeting,
l'organisation
and
de cette
we
deuxième
agreed.
tranche de la
These
réunion.
meetings will take place
Et
in
nous nous
Niamey
sommes
at the
entendus.
same
Ces
time as
réunions
the
ont
other
lieu à
meetings,
Niamey, en
the
même temps
Industrialization Week and the
que les
Executive
autres
Council
réunions, donc la
from the
semaine de
20th to the
l'industrialisation.
25th.
Le sommet et le conseil exécutif auront également lieu à Niamey du 20 au 25.
This is a challenge for the Nigerian authorities who are waiting for this summit to push the ongoing local industrialization process further. And for this, all resources are put to use.
Nous avons créé une synergie entre le ministère en charge de l'industrie, le ministère du commerce, l'ANEC.
We have created a synergy between the ministry in charge of industry, the Ministry of Trade, the African Union, and other partners. We have also identified and prepared parallel events that are important to Niger and important for Africa, which will in fact allow our decision makers to make the necessary decision. It is therefore these events that will enrich the summit. Basically, all the conditions have been met for the summit on the industrialization of Africa, and also the extraordinary session on the AFCFTA to be another success, like the Conference of Heads of States, which took place in 2019 here in Niamey.
Qui a eu lieu en 2019 ici à Niamey.
The current crisis in Ukraine and its adverse effect on wheat imports have shown how important it is to diversify the economies on the continent. The African Union welcomes this favorable opportunity to respond to a pressing economic need.